I think with revenue, and I think this is a big thing, is there's data. You have data. You need to make decisions based on your data. So there's your science, but there's an art aspect.
Oh yeah,
right. And so I had a senior manager that I work with quite often, and she kind of made that comment, and I was like, that's it. That's how I describe it. Like, that really resonated with me, because I'm like, it's that art. It's like, what can we tell with the data?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the story? What do customers want? What don't they want? Like, how do we message that? How do we communicate that? And so like that has really resonated with me the last like 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And has made me like, I want to go like all in. Like, this is, at least for now, like where I want to head, like take the direction of my career.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting on an interesting thing that I would love to explore with you here, which is the difference between so I'm thinking of kind of the sales world in general right now, right? Whether it's B2B, B2C, whatever, there is a tension that exists. I've got, some business associates, one of which is writing a book right now, and it's about the tension and the paradox that exist of like, salespeople need to be fixed, but they need to be flexible. And there's all kinds of other paradoxes that they're kind of drawing there, which is so cool. But I would imagine that what you do in trying to find exactly growth, revenue growth opportunities is probably a balance of, exactly, science, looking at data and strategy and kind of just black and white things on paper, but also some level of, it's a judgment call and it's a gut instinct. And especially when you're talking about impacting markets, there's a huge element of being in any market that is well out of your control, right? When COVID hit in 2020, well, there wasn't a company on the earth that had any influence towards making COVID happen or not happen, right? It decided it was going to happen, it was going to happen, fine. And so I think that that's kind of an interesting aspect of what you do and growing a business of any kind, right? Sales and marketing for any business, whether you are a solopreneur or whether you're a $500 million company, right? Is that there is this kind of art science tension that exists between like the right timing, the right product, the right market, all of that stuff. So I guess throwing it over to you, my question to you is like, how do you manage that? Because what can happen, I feel like, in any world, any kind of creative field endeavor of any kind, is just that if you get too many cooks in the kitchen, naturally, you're gonna cause a fire. I don't know what's the rest of that phrase, but like you're gonna have so many people grabbing the steering wheel, maybe, to use another analogy, and trying to steer the car in 100 different directions. So when there are aspects of what you do that are kind of chance or luck or happenstance or just the right timing, how do you begin to sort through the data and help make a recommendation to a company that this is the right time? Because maybe, just to be clear, that is a big part of what you're doing. Is that correct? That you are not just researching all of this stuff and kind of dreaming up like, oh, here's what I think you should do, but you're also making that recommendation as well to that company, right? So maybe can you just explain, how do you even begin to form something and keep it on the rails and choose a direction that the car is going in?
Yeah. And I think like that's the challenge that you see a lot of, executive C-suite. It's like, we've got an idea, but like, is it valid? Is there room there?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's why you hire us, right? Like, just
naturally
a self pitch. No, but I think that's the advantage. Like, take, a particular industry or particular space. Like, we've probably got an expert there who's like got their finger on the pulse of what's going on in that industry. And the advantage of that is we can go into those, we can understand, it's like, we're trying to, grow revenue by 15% in X industry. We can find an expert in that industry and be like, yeah, like, that's possible. Here's my hypotheses on how that can be done. And maybe you've already thought of those hypotheses, but like, number one is like doing some market validation. What are your competitors doing? What are customers think of? Is it a new pricing strategy? Is it launching a new product? Is it, whatever it is, what does the market say? And so that's where you gather some of that data, right? Like, and look at your own data, like what's not selling well, what's selling well with our customers, where are we making money, where are we losing margin?
Mm-hmm.
And using that to make some of those informed decisions, testing those decisions with the market, testing those hypotheses with market studies and things like that. And then what does that tell us, right? So like with some of that industry experience, with some of those data points, crafting a story out of that. Right. And I think that you need the data to inform those decisions, but you can't rely 100% on the data, right? Because like you're not going to get like, then you lose your creativity, then you use, your innovation or, market options, right? Like if Apple never, only listened to data, we probably wouldn't have iPhones today, right?
Henry Ford, right? I think he was quoted as saying, like, if I had asked consumers what they want, they would have said a faster horse. If I'm not if I'm not just totally making up a Henry Ford quote on the spot right now. And if he never said that, I'm going to take credit for that because but I definitely shouldn't take credit for that. But yeah, I guess, and on that though, when you're presenting data and you've done your research, is that fairly inarguable? Or like, again, I'm not trying to get you to throw any of your customers or clients or anyone under the bus, but I guess I'm just so curious because I feel like it's a human instinct in so many ways. So I don't think this is exclusive to, C-suite executives. It's a human instinct to be like, well, I didn't come up with that idea. I don't feel attached to that idea. I don't know that I really believe that that's the right direction to go in. And so there's a lot of skepticism, right? One of the first things that I learned when I became a people manager was that in order for me to create genuine buy-in with my team, I had to include them in the decision-making process. So the mistake that I made was I came out of being self-employed and then I stepped into people management. And so when you're self-employed, you wear every hat, you do everything yourself. And so I was very used to that, just being like, I think of the idea, I think about how we're going to do it, I do the idea, I evaluate the idea, right? And so I was essentially developing the entire plan, the blueprint, and I just slid it across the desk to my team. I was like, here you go, check back with me in 2 weeks when it's done, right? And they were miserable. Even though it kind of turned out and I was right, I went about it in entirely the wrong way. And so for me, including them in the process was the tipping point of like, here's what we need to do in order to get this to actually succeed and to create genuine buy-in. But in your position, like my assumption from the outside, correct anything that's wrong, is that a C-suite person does not get there by being a pushover or probably being told what to do all the time. Usually they are the ideas people, or they are the people that cast the vision or pushing. And so I'm curious, you kind of, even though they've sought out your expertise, you as an outsider, do you see resistance there? And if so, and maybe you haven't, and that would be amazing, but like, how do you start to overcome challenges like that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And I've seen it on both sides. Like I've seen clients where we have an idea in a way to improve, and there is that resistance. But I've also seen clients where it's like, we have an idea, we want Deloitte to test it for us. And what are tweaks or ways to make it better? And they're both equally interesting. So one of the first kind of projects I did was in that segmentation space. And so it's a B2B company operating in the industrial space and, across Canada.
Okay.
And in automotive in particular. And so they had, 50,000 industrial customers across Canada.
Not too bad.
No, but they had no data that they're using for those customers. Like they don't know, say, a small mom and pop landscaper from, your massive trucking company, right? Like that kind of stuff. And so part of it was like, okay, the exercise started off as like segmenting. Like what are the different kind of buckets of customers or profiles of customers that you have, and what are they looking for? And so like that wasn't something that they were doing. Which then led to, okay, now you need to develop a customer profile. Like, company A wants these products or these services. Company B doesn't care about those. They want these ones. And so building that, but then part of it was, again, the data. It's like they had CRM, and there was just like nobody.
They did or did not?
They did.
Okay, well, that's good, but they
didn't use it.
No
right?
data.
Like there's no data. If there's no data in it, like you can't learn anything.
No, it's useless, right? Just for anyone listening who doesn't know what a CRM is, CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. It's a software essentially that allows you to track all kinds of information about your clients. So ideally, all of the customers that you deal with, you keep some data in there, whether you go on sales calls or sales history or things like that. So to hear of a company that size, it's good that they have a CRM, but it's also wild that they, appeared to be the size that they are and they weren't really doing anything with it, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I think that's like the interesting part about industrial products, or whatever you want to call it, the industrial space, is it's a lot of B2B or even B2C. I do more B2B work. But there's a lot of these like older people, they're close to that retirement age, and they've known sales their entire life, or especially pre-COVID, as like we're going to get out in a car and we're going to drive, and there's a lot of people in that parking lot, so we're going to go knock on some doors there. That doesn't work today.
No.
But the problem is, especially in the industrial space, is those folks have such a significant amount of industrial data or knowledge that's not in CRM.
No.
Right? So like they know that customers want this product and they want this service, and this is how much they're willing to pay for it. If that's not in CRM, when that individual retires, that just walks out the door.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's a problem that's exclusive to this customer, because that's something that I think, you said it, like old school sales guys, that's kind of, I think it's a bit of a generational thing, and it's, with the advent of the internet and how much sales and marketing has just moved purely digital, and that's how we're consuming a lot of these things, that it's, I definitely, I operate primarily in the plumbing and water well industry professionally, and all kinds of customers, manufacturers, all across the board, you're seeing that, where the general population of these companies that they were built on, these, not just salespeople, but these industry experts within all of these different organizations, again, at all different levels, they have knowledge that is going to be lost when they retire, and they are not far from retiring. And so the best companies would benefit from trying to do what you're kind of describing, right? Extract that knowledge from that person, whether it's, dump it into a CRM, which is great. There's obviously all kinds of different things that you can do with that knowledge once you have a document. You can turn it into videos or articles or seminars, all kinds of different things with it, right? And obviously not the least of which is dump it into a CRM and use it to help kind of fund, or not fund, but, be the data backbone of kind of the next part, the next growth leg of your business, right? So anyways, I just want to say, like, that's not exclusive to that industry by any means, that the guys with the knowledge, the guys and ladies with the knowledge are aging out by any means.